Computer unless Congress can pass a measure to block it. Beginning December 1st, a new rule goes into effect that gives the federal government permission to hack millions of Americans' computers at once. The Justice Department says the change is necessary in order to battle cybercrime, but privacy advocates argue the new rule goes too far and are pushing for a vote on a bipartisan bill called the Stopping Mass Hacking Act. But it would be a last-minute vote. Congress is in recess until mid-November.
After years of court battles, the Christian-owned bakery Sweet Cakes by Melissa is closing its doors. The Oregon-based company was targeted by LGBT activists when owners Aaron and Melissa Klein said they would not bake a cake for a gay wedding because of their Christian beliefs. The subsequent legal battles crippled the bakery. The Kleins had been operating out of their home for the last few years. Although they've decided to close shop, they will still stand up for religious freedom. They face a $135,000 fine and will continue to appeal it.
We were surprised to learn that nearly half of American adults are in facial recognition databases. What is law enforcement doing with your mug?
The facial recognition technology locks on once you're in range.
It's putting the green box around us and then displaying our names.
Benji Hutchinson works for NEC, a company that sells the software. So there are cameras like this on the streets.
There are.
Cameras equipped with the software can match a person's face to others in a database. In Baltimore, the police department used facial recognition during the 2015 riots to identify looting suspects, but it has raised privacy concerns. Alvaro Bedoya is an author of a Georgetown Law School study on facial recognition. It found 26 police departments use the technology and 16 states allow the FBI to tap into their systems. Photos are culled from social media images, driver's licenses, and government IDs. The report argues the biometric network primarily includes law-abiding Americans.
Maryland enrolled 4 million drivers in its system. And ask a Marylander, do they know they're in a lineup that scans thousands of times a year without warrants? And I'm pretty sure they'll be surprised about that.
Next tonight to the officers targeted at a California Starbucks, the gunman in body armor pulling out an assault weapon. Here's ABC's Neil Karlinski.
In Vallejo, California tonight, the dramatic surveillance video. Officers chasing a man they say tried to attack them at a Starbucks.
Put a man with a rifle just trying to ambush us at Starbucks. Carrying a rifle. Hey, shoot it!
Police say the man was wearing body armor and had a handgun and an assault-type rifle on him. The gun apparently jamming.
A 41-year-old attempted to assassinate the officers with an assault weapon.
Powell was a person of interest in the shooting of his 2-year-old son, injured earlier that day. The alleged attempt on police, one of several targeting officers in recent weeks. Also Sunday, another officer ambushed, Sergeant Alan Brandt in Fairbanks, Alaska. He's responding to a call of shots fired when he sees a man on the right walking towards him. Suddenly, the man rushes in front of the patrol car with a gun raised, shooting the 11-year veteran. Tonight, the search is on for this man, described by police as a 20-year-old Alaska native.
After mass shootings in Newtown,
the amendment is not agreed to.
San Bernardino,
the motion is not agreed to.
And Orlando,
the motion is not agreed to.
Universal background checks have failed in Congress. But it could be a whole different story in Maine, where voters will see a very similar proposal on their ballots in November. David Trahan runs the Maine gun rights organization and opposes the measure.
I could easily be charged with a felony and lose my right to own firearms simply for letting a friend borrow a firearm for hunting.
Yet he's already admitting defeat, in part because he says he can't compete against the millions spent by a gun control group founded by former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg.
His millions go a long way in the state of Maine, but if he gets a win here, he can then go to other states.
Bloomberg's group has raised $3.7 million this year, compared to just over $420,000 by the National Rifle Association. While Bloomberg declined an interview, he said this to Face the Nation in 2014.
The vast preponderance of the public does not want criminals, minors, or people with psychiatric problems to be able to buy guns.
Polls show overwhelming majorities of Americans support expanding background checks. So in some states, a ballot initiative allows voters to decide instead of lawmakers who fear the NRA. David Farmer is a gun owner who runs the Bloomberg-supported group in Maine. Do you think other states can see this and say, here are ways to get around the gun lobby?
Right.
There's a chink in the NRA's armor?
The power still really does remain with the voters. And if they want change, you can make it happen.
Close the background check loophole!
In 2014, that's exactly what happened in Washington state, where the background check initiative easily won. Bloomberg's group and others spent over $10 million compared to the NRA's $489,000. Sources from gun rights groups tell us the reason the NRA didn't spend more was they knew they were going to lose. And that's Trahan's fear for November.
We're going to be a truly David versus Goliath fight here.
A recent poll shows that 41% of American voters believe the presidential election could be stolen from Donald Trump. More WikiLeaks emails and a new undercover video have raised additional concerns about the fairness of the upcoming vote. Our Gary Lane has more.
For weeks, Trump has warned that this presidential election may be rigged, and he has good reason to be concerned. Vote fraud tactics were revealed this week in an undercover video directed by investigative journalist James O'Keefe of Project Veritas. His team has already exposed Democrat efforts to incite violence at Donald Trump rallies. In part 2 of their video, the former deputy national director of People for the American Way explained how Democrat operatives organize people to cross state lines and cast their votes. He said fraud is easier to prove if buses are used. So instead, Democrat operatives use fleet cars to bring in the illegal out-of-state voters.
Use shell companies. Yeah. Cars come from one company, the paychecks come from another. There's no bus involved, so you can't prove that it's en masse. There you go. So it doesn't tip people off. There you go. That's what I'm saying.
In its latest batch of leaked emails, WikiLeaks shows liberal billionaire George Soros' alleged influence on the Clinton campaign. Soros was mentioned more than 50 times in emails of Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. Also, the Daily Caller reports Soros has deep ties to the British-based voting technology firm Smartmatic. The company has control over voting machines in 16 states, including the key battleground states of Pennsylvania, Colorado, Florida, and Michigan. And another leaked Podesta email demonstrates his lack of concern for potential voter fraud. Podesta is quoted saying, "If you show up on Election Day with a driver's license with a picture, attests that you are a citizen, you have a right to vote in federal elections." The District of Columbia and 12 states, including California, allow illegal immigrants to obtain driver's licenses.